Every entrepreneur has a story. Welcome to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, where each episode your host, Brian Carney, will share a drink with a successful business owner and have them discuss their unique journey, gaining insight on what it takes to be an entrepreneur and the different ways to get there. Brian isn't just a beer nerd, he's also the co-founder of River's Edge Advisors, a financial planning firm headquartered in Delaware, specializing in working with business owners. It's time to pour yourself a drink and enjoy a happy half hour with an entrepreneur.
All right, my guest today is Joe D'Amico. Joe and his brother Tony own an incredibly successful mushroom farming business called Tojo Mushrooms, located in Avondale, Pennsylvania. Tojo is a fourth-generation family business that was started in 1932 by Joe's great-grandfather. Joe's late father ran the business for 27 years before turning it over to his sons. Tojo currently employs 425 people and sells 850,000 pounds of mushroom every week. For our conversation today, I'll be drinking what I refer to as Old Reliable, a Dogfish Head 60-minute IPA. Being a lifelong Delawarean, we all take pride in the fact that Dogfish Head was started in a small town here and has become one of the best breweries in the entire country. Joe's office building has a fully stocked kitchen, complete with a kegerator. They just had a fresh keg delivered, so Joe's going to be drinking a Victory Dirt Wolf from the nearby Victory Brewing Company, located in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. And with that, I welcome Joe. Cheers.
Cheers, Brian. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to have you. So let's get the first question out of the way. It's an easy one. So You have a fully stocked kitchen that I've been in. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about what's on tap in the kitchen? What do you have on tap there?
I kind of figured you'd ask that question, so I actually jotted down on my notes here like I was going to be a waiter coming to your table.
Perfect.
So we have a 4-gun tap system in there, and like as you said, we just got done putting fresh kegs in. Right now we have Victory Dirt Wolf, which always goes on the left. So for some reason, Dirt Wolf, that's my brother's favorite beer. So for some reason, it's always on the left.
Okay.
So we'll go in there, and that's probably the most vicious beer we have in there.
Yeah. So I think it's like 8.9 or 8.9%.
Yeah, I think it's a strong one. I mean, 2 of these big boys, and that's about all you can handle. and this is my second one. I have to pregame this. So
show prep.
We call that the far left. So if you go in and you really want to get the party going, we say, just give me one on the far left. That's always Dirt Wolf on the far left.
Okay.
Next we actually have Dogfish 60-minute.
Oh, perfect.
And then they put in a Sam Adams Winter Lager and a Modelo Special.
Oh, that's perfect.
Especial.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, good. Well, first, let's start and talk a little bit about Tojo. So tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so Tojo was started, as you said, we're 4th generation. My brother and I represent the 4th generation of our family to be in the mushroom business. And it's kind of a cool story how it started. My great-grandfather, he immigrated here from Italy, and he was a stonemason in Italy. So he came here, through New York City, and ended up in Hershey, Pennsylvania somehow. I'm not very clear how that happened. But he was working there in Hershey, Pennsylvania as a stonemason, and he came across a stone quarry here in Avondale, Pennsylvania, that he purchased in the 1932, because that was during the Great Depression. On the property of the quarry, there was actually mushroom houses that were already erected onto the property.
Huh.
So during the Great Depression, he was trying to figure out, how do I best provide for my family? And he was utilizing all the resources he had. So he started growing mushrooms as well as, doing a stonemason. And it just kind of evolved from there. My grandfather was a 2nd generation. He took over he actually leased out the quarry to another guy. So he wasn't as much in the quarry business. But he doubled the size of my great-grandfather's mushroom farm. So then the 3rd generation came in, my uncle and my father, where my uncle took over the growing operation that my grandfather had started. My uncle then took back the quarry operation, which he still runs to today.
Yeah.
It's called D'Amico Quarry. So he still operates the quarry.
Huh.
And then at that time, my uncles took over that growing. My dad started his own company at the time, and he named it Tojo after my brother Tony and me, Joe, where he did more of the marketing and sales of the mushrooms. So my uncle would grow all the mushrooms. My dad would buy all the mushrooms from my uncle, and then he would take it to market and sell it. At the time, he was selling a lot of his mushrooms into New York City, into the Hunts Point market in New York City. So that's kind of how we got started. And as you said, my brother and I are fourth generation, and we just continue to grow it from there.
That's great. So your dad was sort of like in the distribution business, and your uncle was in the growing business?
100. Yeah. I mean, my uncle was fully immersed into the growing. I think at one point my dad tried to grow and he failed miserably at it. He told me stories about, my dad told me stories before he passed about, him trying to grow. And it's funny because as we'll go along through the story here, you'll understand that I'm more into growing than anything. And my dad failed miserably at it. So I guess at the time he figured, he purchased a station wagon, and him and my mom, they just started a company where they said, we're gonna buy all the mushrooms from Johnny, who's my uncle, and we're gonna market them and sell them and try and make money that way. So that was the route that they went, and it ended up working perfectly.
That's awesome.
So to this day, my uncle's still a grower. He produces roughly 35-40% of what we sell. And he sells 100% of what he grows. He sells to my brother and I under the Tojo label.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
It's still a full family business. Was it a foregone conclusion that you were going to work in the family business, or was it something that you always wanted to do? Like were you expected to do it, or were you excited to do it? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question that I get all the time, I was never, ever once pushed into getting into the business. Actually, when I was in high school, I had zero intention to go to college. Like I didn't even want to go to college. And my dad said, listen, here's the deal. I want you to go to college. You gotta offer to go to college and play on the football team. Go to college, play football. If you hate it, you can come back home, but I want you to at least go try it.
Huh.
And honestly, it was the best thing I've ever done. I mean, I think college is so great for kids. It gives you a chance to get out of, your hometown.
Right.
See other people, see what other people come from. It gave me a chance to grow up. You get out there, you drink, the typical party. And you get that all out of your system, right? You go to college and you get all that out of your system so that when you get done college, you come back and you get to work. I mean, I had zero intention in completing college, but I ended up finishing in 4 years. I did have to stay a couple summers and do a couple summer school to get done in 4 years. But it was the best experience of my life. And, going from something that I thought that I would never want to do is go to college, because I completely hated school, just like most kids. I mean, I wanted nothing to do with school, but the whole going to school, going to college and growing up, I think it was huge for me.
Yeah. Well, the college you went to is a little different than most colleges, right? It has a focus in farming.
Yeah. So I went to Delaware Valley College in Doylestown, PA. And my brother was actually 2 years ahead of me, and he went to the same school. I actually followed him there. So it's been, he was 2 years ahead of me. His best friend was my roommate freshman year. And, I was a freshman and my roommate was already 21. So he was able to keep the refrigerator full. It was a great experience. And then, having my brother there ahead of me, I had already had friends there before I even got there. And yeah, like you said, it's an agricultural school. My brother was a food science major, and then I was just a business administration major.
Okay.
They did have an agribusiness program there, but I didn't go down that track because it was more focused towards crop farming and cattle farming and things like that.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think that it applied to me. I knew that where I was, and that's what I always told my dad, like, I'm not going to go to college and learn how to grow mushrooms, Dad. Why do I need to go? And he said, you need to go to college to learn how to, grow up and
Yeah.
see, get out there and see what's out there in the world. So,
Right.
but it was a great experience. College was great. And yeah, that was college.
Yeah, of course. So, today, what's your role in the business and what's your brother's role? Do you have two separate and distinct roles that are?
Yeah. So, basically when I got out of, college, I mean, I worked here, for my dad every summer through high school and then through college. And then when I got out of college, my brother had already been here for 2 years. And kind of a cool story. My dad, right before my brother graduated college, my brother tells a story in almost every meeting we go to. But my dad called him one day in his dorm room and he said, look, here's the deal. Are you interested in getting into this business? Because if not, I'm going to kind of take a different track.
Huh.
I would, if you are, fine. If you're not, fine. But I just need to know so that I can, plan out my future. So my brother said, look, I'm interested in coming back, Dad. So my brother came back 2 years ahead of I, and he started working for my dad, and he got involved, fully immersed into the sales and marketing aspect of the business. And, he took it to another level of food safety and things like that. Everything that he learned, taking the food science background in college,
Right.
He brought here. And at the time, my dad made a big hire of a guy that he wouldn't have normally hired if he wasn't looking for the future of the business. So my brother was here 2 years ahead of me. So when I got out of school, I knew that I wasn't involved. I wasn't interested in the day-to-day office job. I didn't want to be sitting behind a desk.
Yeah.
So I actually, when I got out of college, I went straight home and started working for my uncle. And my uncle was the one that grows uncle still grows all the mushrooms for us today.
Yeah.
So I started working for him for probably, I got out in 2002. I would say for 2 years straight, I worked for my uncle. I helped him. He purchased a new farm very shortly after I got out of college. I helped him start a composting process. And I worked for him for 2 years, which was a great experience. I mean,
it's like an apprenticeship.
Yeah, that's another thing that my dad always kind of pushed on us was that I don't want you to just come home and work for me because I want you to go see what it's like to work for someone else. Granted, working for my uncle it wasn't much different than working for my dad because I feel like my uncle's a dad to me now.
Right.
So I went and worked for him for 2 years, learned so much from him. I mean, he's one of the best growers in the area, and he taught me everything. I mean, he was just every day, all he wanted to do was feed me every information out of his head that he had.
Yeah.
That was a great 2 years of my life. And then I actually get choked up thinking about it.
Yeah.
To be able to wash it down with some dirt.
With some dirt.
So, as you can tell, I'm like so passionate about our company and our family history that it's like this stuff it comes so naturally to me to talk about.
Yeah.
So I worked for my uncle for 2 years. Then my father got sick in 2004. He got diagnosed with a rare cancer called multiple myeloma. So at the time, I was working for my uncle, and I was like, listen, I'm going to step back and I'm going to go back and work for my dad. He got sick. He got diagnosed, say today. And a week later, he was in Little Rock, Arkansas, getting treatment for his cancer.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I came back. I said, look, I want to go be with my brother. I want to try and do everything I can to help him. So I did that. And then as time went on, my brother and I had a bunch of different independent growers at the time. And as those independent growers had their transition out and they didn't have a next generation to come in, they came to us and said, hey, are you interested in leasing our growing facility and running it as yourself? So that's how, today my brother and I have a growing operation that represents about 50% of what we sell as well. So we have our own growing operation as well as my uncle's growing operation, as I spoke to earlier.
Yeah.
as those opportunities presented themselves, my brother and I would take them over, and we were just kind of taking over farms little by little by little.
Right.
When I came back and started working with my brother, that's what we started doing, was focusing on, the growers that we had that were growing for us, that were no longer wanting to be in the business. We were taking those farms over so that because we were relying upon those mushrooms to come in every day.
Yeah.
So they went out of business and didn't sell us the mushrooms. We were out the mushrooms.
Yeah.
We had to find the mushrooms somewhere. So it was easier for us to take over their farm and to ensure that we had the product coming in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so difficult question, but was it always the plan for you and Tony to take over the business when you did, or was it sort of accelerated because your dad got sick and you were sort of pushed to the forefront?
Yeah, super accelerated. My dad passed away when he was 52 years old.
Wow.
So, I was, when he got diagnosed, as I said, in 2004, so I was 2 years out of college.
Oh, geez.
When he got diagnosed, and he died in 2009, which would put me at 29 years old. So
holy crap.
We were super young. I was 29. My brother was 31 when my father passed away. So it was like, it was just it wasn't dumped on us because, as I said, he got diagnosed in 2004. So we had 5 years to actually, we did calls like this. We installed a screen in our conference room where we could talk to him and see him. So as we say, we had 5 years to kind of prepare for it.
Right.
You're never fully prepared, right?
Yeah.
But and then I'll probably talk about it later on, but he always had a tremendous team surrounding him. That was his probably greatest attribute, was his ability to surround himself with people that are just, better. He would even say himself, I want to surround myself with people that are better than me.
Right.
I'm not trying to say that I'm the best. I want to have the best CFO. I want to have the best guy that understands the finances. I want to have the best operations guy. So that was his thing. And my brother and I kind of keep that mentality to this day. So
that's a huge leadership example where you sort of say, that you saw from your dad, like, hey, I'm good at this, but not these other things. I want people that are smarter than me at those other things.
100%. I mean, that was my dad's I think that was his greatest attribute, was realizing, because, a lot of business owners, they think that, hey, I'm the owner of the company and I should be able to control everything, right?
Absolutely.
He was the complete opposite. My dad was such a humble guy. He was always the one to say, if someone's better at me than something, then I want to have them on my team to make me better. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And same thing with, people always say, oh, you sell your mushrooms to Acme, but it doesn't say Tojo on it. And my dad would always say, it doesn't have to say my name on it. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not about, me. It's about the company and the betterment of the company. So
that's actually, so you use the word humble, but I think a lot of businesses are sunk or have issues because of the owner's ego, and being able to see someone put their ego completely to the side and just want to do the best for the organization that's a huge lesson to be able to be learned.
I think that's probably one of the most challenging things, because as being involved in business and being involved with business owners, a lot of owners are that type A personality where they want to be up front and center, and they want to be, the powerhouse, and that's fine. But at some point you have to understand that you need the people around you as well.
Yeah, you have to set your ego aside for the greater good of the organization.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk a little bit about the team, because you go to your website, you can see that you guys are committed to building a fun, winning culture. Not the easiest thing to do with 425 employees. So talk a little bit about how you guys really focus on and ways that you strive to build that winning culture.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like your questions kind of all morph into each other here, but as unfortunate as it was that my father passed away at a young age and he left the company to my brother and I at a young age, my brother and I were able to do things that maybe typically we wouldn't be able to do if our father was here, right? Because
right.
untouchable mentality.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You know what I mean? It was like, well, there's no one here to tell us we can't do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was guys that were working for us that kind of thought we were crazy at the time, you know?
Yeah.
When we started on this culture experience that we have now, some of the guys that work for us kind of looked at us side-eyed and like, are you guys crazy, you know, thinking this way? But eventually they bought onto it because they kind of understood where it was. But when it comes to culture, and I know your question is revolved around culture and how we do what we do. We always say, you know, it's not something that can be copied per se. You know what I mean? Culture has to start from the top, right? So my brother and I both firmly believe, and I give most of the credit to my brother because he's the one that really pushed this and pushed as hard as he could to create this culture. And I saw it and I was like, yeah, this makes sense. But it has to be from the top, and it has to go from the top down, and you have to live it every day.
Yeah.
It's not something that I hear so many companies that say, oh, we want to change the culture of the company. Let's have a cupcake day. Like you can't just bring in cupcakes one day and expect to change the culture of the company, right?
Right.
I mean, you have to believe, the owners have to believe it, or the person at the top has to believe it. They have to live it, right? You have to not only believe it, but live it every day in your actions, in the way that you treat your employees.
Yep.
There's so many things that come in the culture that it's, and the great thing about it is not everyone can do it, right? I mean, I can, if someone doesn't believe in it, I can tell them all day long what we do here, and they'll never be able to copy it, because if you don't believe in it and live it every day, it doesn't go down. The only way that I can describe good culture in your company, it's not having cupcakes once a month, or
you can't fake it.
Happy hour and throwing a case of beer in the conference room and saying, hey, let's have a beer together. You know, that's not it at all.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about some of the events that you guys do.
So
for your employees.
One of the things we did, I'm trying to think of how long it's been now, but we set out, and this was, I'll give 100% of the credit to my brother. He said, here's what we need. We both kind of take responsibility for this. Here's what we need. We need a guy that's going to be our culture ambassador. And that was like something that was unheard of at the time, right?
Sure.
I think it's probably been 4 years ago, maybe 5. We need a guy that's just going to be here and just be the guy to make sure everybody is happy. And you say that, but we really wanted that. It wasn't like we wanted to say, oh, everyone's happy to come to work. We wanted everyone to feel like they're a part of the family. They're happy to come to work every day. So he's like, we need a culture ambassador. And I was like, I got the perfect kid, right? So I knew this kid. I had met him a few times. He's a friend of the family, Spanish kid, fluent Spanish, like personality plus.
Yeah.
So I called this kid and I was like, hey, at the time, I'm like, hey, what are you doing nowadays? And he's like, I'm actually selling phones for Cricket Wireless. I was like, well, would you be interested in coming down and talking to us? Maybe you could work for us or something. He's like, yeah, I'm cutting the grass now. I can get a shower and I can come down there in like a half an hour. So the funniest thing, that kid is with us today. He's in our HR department. He is one of the reasons that our culture is the way that it is today. And I was sitting in the kitchen prior to this podcast, and I was having a beer with him before this. So
that's great.
Things like that, like what he does, he organizes. Typically, prior to the year 2020. We would have a celebration day where we would have different vendors come in, French fry truck, Rita's ice cream, taco truck. Tacos were always essential. We've had Mexican street corn. And we would always have a band, and we would have, face painter, all kinds of things, different things. We would have that every year. We would have what's called Celebration Day, and we would have it all in one day. And we have a soccer field that we created for the employees to play soccer. It's my backyard, essentially, from where I live, but it's right outside of our packaging facility. We would have it out there every year. We'd have a tent, all the vendors. This year, with COVID, we kind of had to keep our employees segregated a little bit.
Yeah.
So what we did was we did a spirit week.
Oh, wow.
Where basically we had the taco guy come in one day and we would departmentalize, different departments would start at different times, and they came in and they did tacos. And then the next day we had the donut guy, the donut truck come in, and we gave donuts and coffees to everybody. So we just did something every day for a week, because we didn't want it to, just because of the COVID, we didn't want it to stop. As I said earlier, we didn't want to just have a box of donuts or something.
Right. You wanted to keep that culture moving.
We want to keep that. We know how important it is to us, and we do believe it, and we do live it every day. So we wanted to make sure that no matter what, we made sure that our employees knew that we're still thinking about them.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Yeah. One of the things, obviously you talk about working with your brother.
Yeah.
So I have two brothers, and the thought of working with them every day in close confines of a close office, that leaves a little bit to be desired. So what's it like working with your brother every day?
So, funniest thing, I always get the common questions that you're asking me. How have you guys made it 4 generations? And the second question is, how do you two work together every day? So many people say, I could never, ever work with my brother.
Right.
Never. To be honest with you, man, I can't imagine life not working with my brother. Like,
it's great.
I work every day. I mean, he's my best friend, and every day I come in and our desks are literally 3 feet away from each other.
So you can't get closer than that.
We have our desks side by side and a portrait of our father right behind us looking at us.
That's amazing.
So, I can't imagine anything else. And as you said, you asked about our roles earlier. I said that, my role was growing and Tony's is more sales and marketing. That's kind of morphed into, we built such a great team in sales and marketing where we have excellent employees, and our growing team is phenomenal too, that it allows my brother and I the time to spend together and focus on the future of the company.
Sure.
Where, to be honest, him and I are together probably, I would say, 100% of the day, other than him going to the bathroom or something like that. We're pretty much inseparable. I mean, everywhere we go, everywhere together. And it's just so great because there's always someone there, when a problem arises, no matter if it's in the growing, where it always comes to me.
Yeah.
He's always right next to me to make the decision with me. If it's a sales, problem, where the sales guy walks into our office, I'm sitting right next to him. So we typically make the decisions together. And I mean, we both have a mutual respect for each other that, it just works. I'm not sure how, but we're together pretty much 100% of it every day.
Well, that's great.
And I could probably count on one hand how many times we've had a fight. So
that's amazing. That's literally amazing to be able to say that.
And I think that has a lot to do with our success, is the fact that we get along so well.
Absolutely.
And same thing. I mean, it just comes down to respecting each other and making sure that, I respect your opinion, you respect my opinion. And that's how it works.
Well, this brings up the ego part again, where you're both able to set your ego aside and do the best thing for the organization.
Yeah. And I think that's obviously a quality that was instilled in us from our dad. I mean, he was a humble guy. Yeah. I think he kind of taught us that growing up, that you need to respect each other and make sure that your opinion may be one and his opinion may be another, but at the same point, you need to come together and make sure that the opinion is what's best for the company. So,
yep. That's great. Yeah. Well, you said that people ask you 2 questions. So I already asked you the second one. So let me go back to the first one. So
okay.
If you look at the statistics, 30% of family businesses survive moving from generation 1 to generation 2. Right. Only 12% survive going to the 3rd generation, and less than 3% survive the 4th generation and beyond. So statistically, you guys are already an anomaly, which is amazing. So what do you think the main reason is that not only have you guys survived 4 generations, but you're actually thriving now and perhaps doing better than the company's ever done?
Right. So I actually have a great answer for that question. My great-grandfather when he came over, he started. And then, as I said, my grandfather took over. For some reason, my great-grandfather had this thing that he would never allow, and this gets funny towards the end. He never wanted his sons to be in business together. Therefore, my grandfather had a brother so my grandfather had his company, and he never wanted them to be in business together. So my grandfather was in business, and his brother was in business as well.
Right.
My grandfather's sons were my father and my uncle.
Yep.
My grandfather's brother's sons still are in business to this day, and they sell their mushrooms to us as well.
Oh, wow.
Now, those two are in business together. My dad and my uncle were never in business together. Never once. They each had their own separate businesses, and I think they always worked together. My uncle sold all his mushrooms to my dad. They always worked together, but their finances were never put together.
Yeah.
Right. Now here's where so then my dad had the business with my brother and I. So here's where the kind of strange part is. My brother and I are in business together. We might not make it past 4 generations. But that's what I contributed to. None of the generations ahead of us were in business together. Brothers or not, they always had their separate businesses. Him and I have, we're 50-50 owners of this company.
Yeah.
And as I just explained, obviously we get along very well.
Yeah.
What happens, I don't know at this point. Our kids are obviously pretty young. We don't know where it's going to go from here, but it's certainly going to survive my brother and I.
Sure.
If we're fortunate enough to have a kid that wants to get into the business, I'm sure we would definitely pass it down. But I think that does have a lot to do with it. Honestly, I think a lot of times companies are left to siblings jointly, and they just can't work it out. Like you just said, I don't know if I would be able to work with your brothers. I understand that, and I hear that every day. I mean, people tell me all the time, like I can't even sit at Thanksgiving with my brother, let alone run a company with it.
Let alone 3 feet next to him for 50 hours a week. So that's actually really interesting. So essentially, there's always family businesses that were never actually, for lack of a better term, married. Siblings.
They were never tied together, and honestly, I firmly believe. Because here's the thing, if I look at my father and my uncle, who had 2 separate businesses, they were different personalities, no question about it. My uncle had a different thought pattern than my father. My father always wanted to. So just to kind of elaborate, and I don't want to go too long. I don't know how much time, but my father was always the type to build a team around him and hire the people to help him. My uncle was always the type, and there's nothing wrong with either way of these.
Right.
And I fully respect both aspects of this. My uncle was always the type that if I want to do it myself, I want to be there. I want to be hands-on. And to this day, he is that way. Extremely successful in what he does. I think it's because of the way he is.
Yeah.
As I said, there's nothing wrong with either way. They were complete opposites, and I don't think they would jive together.
Yeah.
If they were partners in business, it may not have survived because of their differences in theory.
Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. I mean, if to be able to run 2 businesses 2 separate ways is a lot easier than run one business.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
When you look back at your career, what do you think the lowest point was?
For sure. I mean, this goes without saying. The lowest point is when my father passed away. I mean, as I said, I was 28. My brother was 31. We were kind of young in the industry. Till today, we still have people that work for my father that still work for us today. We have people that have been here 30, 40 years. It was tough. I mean, my father passed away young. As I said, he was like 52 years old. When you're 40 years old, you look at that and you're like, holy smokes.
You're right.
But the hardest thing for my career was that day that, he was no longer with us. And
sure.
And, my brother and I were here, and we took the reins, and here we are 28 and 31, and we have employees that are working for us that are our father's age, that our father hired, and they're the same age as him. And it's like, this doesn't feel right, and do they respect us? We it was always, I don't, and honestly, never, ever did we get the feeling that they disrespected us.
Sure.
But it was always that feeling like, I'm 30 years younger, 20 years younger than this guy.
Yeah.
Like, why should he respect me? You know what I mean?
That's a little imposter syndrome, a little bit, where you think that, I get it. That makes a ton of sense.
So that was by far the
lowest point,
the lowest part of my professional career.
Well, let's kind of flip to the other side. So you've gotten to do a lot of fun things for your job, as part of your business. Is there anything that sticks out as one of the most fun experiences that you've had?
Yeah, I mean, the produce industry, and not everyone understands this because not everyone's in the produce industry, but produce industry is full of people that are just like-minded and just super cool and fun. And so we have, several different shows every year prior to COVID, obviously.
Sure.
We would have shows every year that were just incredibly fun. I mean, Produce Marketing Association has a show every year, a retail show and a food service show. The food service show was always in Monterey, California, or, San Francisco area, where we would go out to California. You can play golf at the beach and all that. But the people that are in this industry are phenomenal. And, at that show, there's produce companies that'll put on private concerts for, they had Kid Rock and they had Pitbull one year, and they had, just different private concerts that with like 2,000 people. That's like at the House of Blues in Orlando. It's like, this is there's like hardly anyone here. And then the funny part was as Pitbull is one of my favorites. And one year they had Pitbull at this private concert, and literally like 60% of the people had no idea who he was. And I was there like a teenage little girl having a time of my life, because there was hardly anyone there. Yeah. And like, so a lot of the older people were like, who even is this guy?
Right.
But I think, the travel and being able to connect with, a lot of the people within the produce industry that's the greatest thing for me. Yeah,
you don't always get into industries that have a collegial relationship where people really want to help each other. So that's great that the produce industry is like that.
It's totally like a fraternity. I mean, it's like my brother and I are good friends with like onion farmers and potato farmers and just different people within the industry that are so like-minded that it's like, I'm sure for you, if you go to a financial conference, it's not like you're buddy with some accountant.
I can tell you Pitbull doesn't show up to those to talk about taxes. Let me ask you one more question before we run out of time. So you have, three young children. How, obviously running a large corporation, a lot of employees.
Yeah.
How do you maintain your work-life balance?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you know, I'm divorced. So, my main focus is that the time that I have my kids, I am 100% focused on them. So pretty much when my kids are here, I'm not at work, with them. We're doing different things. And I think that's probably the greatest thing that came out of it, is that it gave me a sense of realization that like, you need to be present for your kids. So the work-life balance for me to ask me is a little different than to ask, someone who's in a marriage or things that, it's like when I have my kids, I'm 100% with them.
Yeah. So you're all in when they're with you.
I'm all in when they're with me. They're with me probably 40% of the time. Every other weekend, I have them, and every Thursday night I have them, and every other Tuesday I have them for dinner. And it's just like, I know they're coming at 5, and I'm at my house at 4:45 waiting
ready
for them.
It's so great.
No question. It's like, my brother's like, all right, your kids are coming over tonight. Like, he knows that I'm out like at 5. Now, when they're not coming over, I may be here till 6 o'clock, and we might be in the kitchen drinking beers, or we might be down, talking about business. But he knows, like, the days that the kids are coming. He says, "I know the kids are coming today, so I'm out of here," and I'm 100% focused on them, which it's been great for me. I mean, I feel that's important. So
that's great. Being present is really difficult, so it's amazing.
Yeah, I think that people that are married maybe don't understand the importance of that, is being present when you are with your kids, like being super focused on the fact that they want you there. I mean, and that's easy to look beyond, you know what I mean? When you
Absolutely.
go home, you're tired from work, you go home, and it's like, so fortunately for me, when I know my kids are coming, I know that I'm going to be 100% with them, and I'm focused on them and only them. So
that's great. Well, good. Well, thanks so much for your time today. I absolutely enjoyed it. It was a great conversation. And if you'd like more information about Joe's business and to see how much fun they have at work, or to get some great recipes, visit their website at tojo.com. And the next time you're in the grocery store, make sure you pick up some Tojo mushrooms. Thanks again, Joe. Cheers.
All right, Brian. Cheers. Thanks, bro.
Thank you for listening to Happy Half Hour with an Entrepreneur, sponsored by River's Edge Advisors. For more information on how River's Edge Advisors can help you, visit their website at riversedgeadvisors.com. If you'd like to connect with Brian Carney for business advice or just to share a beer, follow him on Instagram at riversedgeadvisors_LLC.